Hey guys, welcome back to the channel and welcome to another video. So in this video I am just going to show you everything that I've picked up, all the movies I've purchased in the month of September 2024. There's a few Blu-rays here and a few 4Ks. So yeah, let's just get straight into it. So first up we have a movie that came out about a couple of years ago now. Initially I was very interested in seeing this film, but after the reviews I kind of lost interest a bit in seeing it. But I saw it in HMV and it was down to £3.50 and I thought, yeah, for that price I'll give it a go. And it is Don't Worry Darling. So yeah, this is the film directed by Olivia Wilde, starring Florence Pugh. She plays this woman who lives in this community and it seems like the perfect community basically. But as the film progresses, she realises that there's something not quite right and it kind of goes from there. Yeah, I enjoyed this film. I think the biggest problem I had with it is I felt like the twist was very, very predictable. And ultimately the concept of the film is just too familiar. I feel like there's other movies out there that have done this concept a lot better. But overall, it's a decent little movie. It looks very good. Florence Pugh is really good in it. But yeah, overall, it's just okay. And like I said, I just feel like there are other movies out there that have done this concept a lot better. But anywho, that is Don't Worry Darling. Next up, we have a German media book. And this is for a movie that I've been wanting to see for years, but I've never been able to track down a copy of the film with like an English soundtrack or English subtitles. But now we finally have one, and it is A Better Tomorrow 3. So this is the third film in the Better Tomorrow series. The first two films were directed by John Woo, and they're like two classic action movies of that heroic bloodshed genre of films. You know, they go alongside the likes of Hard Boiled and The Killer as some of the best action films ever. This one is a prequel to the first two movies, and it basically follows Chow Yun-fat's character on how he became the character that he becomes in the first Better Tomorrow film. And yeah, I really enjoyed this one. I liked it just as much as the first two. It's got a good story. It's got some good action scenes in there. And overall, it's just a real fun time. So yeah, I would definitely recommend checking out any of the Better Tomorrow films if you like your action movies. But yeah, this one is A Better Tomorrow 3. Next up, we have a new release from Eureka, and it is The Champions. So this is a Hong Kong action sports comedy film. It stars Yuen Bio, who plays basically like this hapless farmer character who is scouted by this football team because of his football skills. But when he joins the team, the manager just holds a real grudge against him and just treats him really badly. So he decides to move on to a rival team, and then ultimately the two teams end up competing against each other. It's a pretty fun movie. It's got like a mix of real brutal fight scenes in it, along with all of these like football or soccer scenes, I should say. Yeah, it's a fun little movie. It's not like amazing, but it's a fun little sports action comedy film from Hong Kong. So yeah, that is The Champions. Next up, I have a couple of films from the Radiance film label. These were 2 for £22 in HMV. And the first one we have here is The Dead Mother. So this is a Spanish thriller, and it's all about this girl who, at the beginning of the movie, her mother is brutally murdered by a man who breaks into their house, and he ends up getting away. It then shifts a few years later, and the girl is living in this mental institution, basically still scarred from her mother's death. But one day, this guy reappears and he sees the girl and he recognizes her from all those years ago. And he decides to kidnap the girl because he's worried that she'll see him and she'll report him to the authorities. But after he kidnaps her, they start forming this really strange relationship. And I don't really want to say any more than that, but it's a very interesting film with a very unique sort of concept. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's a very little known film that, you know, I hadn't even heard of, but it was a really solid Spanish thriller. So yeah, that is The Dead Mother. And the other film that I picked up in that Radiance film deal was Goodbye and Amen. Now, I haven't seen this film yet, so I can't really comment on it, but from what I can gather, it's an Italian thriller from the 1970s, and I think it's something to do with this guy who perches himself on the rooftop of a building and just starts shooting at people with a sniper rifle, and it's up to the police or the CIA, I think, to basically stop his rampage. But yeah, other than that, I don't really know a whole lot about the movie, but I was just really intrigued by the concept. So yeah, that is goodbye and amen. Next up, we have a new release from 88 Films, and we have Legacy of Rage, starring Brandon Lee, who was, of course, the son of the legendary Bruce Lee. And this is technically Brandon Lee's first film. It was his first film that he made in Hong Kong. It was his first and only film, I should say, in Hong Kong. And he basically just plays this guy who is betrayed by his best friend. He's framed for murder. He's sent to prison. And after he gets released from prison a few years later, he basically decides to take revenge against his friend who betrayed him. And yeah, it's just a really solid, fun action movie. There's plenty of great fight scenes. There's some gunfight scenes in this. And it's just a really fun blast for 90 minutes. And Brandon Lee is great in it. And yeah, it's just a really nice release from 88 Films as well. Love the artwork on it. But yeah, really fun movie. So yeah, that is Legacy of Rage. Next up, we have another film from 88 Films. This one is on their 88 Vault label, and it is Shout at the Devil, starring Roger Moore and Lee Marvin. So again, this is another film that I haven't got round to watching yet, but as far as I can tell from the plot, I think it's set during World War One. It's set in Zanzibar, and Roger Moore and Lee Marvin play these two characters who decide to team up to take down this German warboat that is being repaired somewhere in Zanzibar. But that's all I really know about the film. But I do enjoy these sort of classic 70s war films. I really like Roger Moore. I love his Bond movies. I'm not saying this is going to be anything like his Bond movies and that he's going to be playing a James Bond-like character, but I'm looking forward to checking it out nonetheless. So yeah, that is Shout at the Devil. Right, so on to the 4Ks now, and the first one we have here is one from Scream Factory, and it's for an absolutely brilliant Sam Raimi film, and it is Darkman, starring Liam Neeson. So yeah, this is Sam Raimi's version of a dark superhero movie, sort of similar to things like The Shadow, and has like that a Phantom of the Opera kind of vibe to it as well, but I absolutely love this film. It's probably one of my favourite Sam Raimi films alongside the Evil Dead films. Just a fun movie, very dark in places, but also very goofy. I love the direction of this film. I love how it's edited. It's so over the top in places. But yeah, it's just a fun movie. Liam Neeson is really hamming it up as the main character. And yeah, it's just a fantastic movie. And it was one that I desperately wanted to upgrade to 4K, and now I have. So yeah, that is Darkman. Next up, we have a 4K from Arrow Video US, and it is Friday the 13th. This is the 2009 remake. So yeah, it's a loose remake of the first movie, but it kind of takes elements of some of the other films from the original series. And yeah, I do like this film. The reason why I picked it up is because I'm a big fan of the series as a whole, and the last time I owned this film was just on DVD. I never had it on Blu-ray, and I decided to just pick it up and go for the 4K. I also really love this particular release. I think the artwork on this is gorgeous. You've got like plenty of special features on here. You've got 2 cuts of the film and some other like great goodies inside. But yeah, the movie is not necessarily one of my favourites in the series. I think it's a bit of a guilty pleasure of mine. I feel like the script was written by a 12-year-old. I think a lot of the characters in this film are so annoying and so unlikable. But at the same time, this film does do a decent enough job to make Jason scary again. And, you know, he's very angry in this film and quite brutal in places. So yeah, not necessarily my favourite in the series, but it is a fun entry nonetheless. So that is Friday the 13th, the 2009 remake. Next up, we have a 4K release from Kino Lorber, and we have Red Dragon. So yeah, this is chronologically the first film in the Hannibal Lecter trilogy of films, with Silence of the Lambs and Hannibal following on from this one. And the reason why I picked this one up is because I picked up Silence of the Lambs on 4K from Arrow Video not too long ago. And I decided I wanted to get this one on 4K, and this was really the only way of getting it. And yeah, also, I just really love this film. I think it is very, very underrated, and it kind of falls under the shadow of Silence of the Lambs a little bit. I know it was made after Silence of the Lambs, but I don't consider this a prequel because Red Dragon was always the first story. You know, you think back to the novels, Red Dragon was always the first one, and I know they did it with, was it Manhunter back in the 80s, but I think this is a really solid re-adaptation of that book and that story. And just, yeah, I just think it's a really good serial killer film, and it stands kind of toe-to-toe with Silence of the Lambs for me. So, yeah, that is Red Dragon on 4K. Next up, we have another 4K from Scream Factory, and we have Silver Bullet. So yeah, this is an adaptation of the Cycle of a Werewolf novel or novella by Stephen King. And yeah, this is just a fun werewolf movie from the 1980s. It's basically one of those small town films where the characters are getting attacked by this werewolf. It's got a really good cast in it. You've got Gary Busey, you've got Corey Haim, you've got Everett McGill. And yeah, it's just a decent little horror film from the 80s. It's not one of the best werewolf films out there, but it's a pretty solid one nonetheless. So yeah, that is Silver Bullet. Next up, we have another 4K release. This one is from 88 Films, and I think this is from the US store of 88 Films, and it is the Project A collection. So this is a collection of films starring Jackie Chan. You've got Project A, and you've got Project A Part 2, and he basically plays this police detective sort of at the turn of the 19th century. And these films are basically just about him fighting pirates, corrupt government officials, and all sorts of shady characters like that. And yeah, I love these movies. I previously had them on Eureka, but once I found out they were getting a 4K release from 88 Films, I had to jump at that. And yeah, these are two films that were kind of made when Jackie Chan was sort of at the peak of his powers, if you like. They go alongside the first two police story films from like the mid to late 80s, just a great era for Jackie Chan films. Lovely box set from 88 Films. You get the two movies. They look great on 4K, all sorts of special features and goodies in this box set. Yeah, two fantastic films, two of my favourite Jackie Chan ones. That is the Project A collection. And then my last pickup for September 2024 is a movie that I have been waiting at least 10 years just to get a Blu-ray release for, but now we have an absolutely glorious 4K release of it, and it is The Hitcher, starring Rutger Hauer. Yeah, this film is one of my all-time favourites. It's probably in my top 10 movies of all time. I can remember seeing this when I was about 12, 13 years old, and it just blew me away. I was so impressed with this film. I couldn't believe how good it was. For those who don't know what it is, it's basically this road movie. It stars C. Thomas Howell. He plays this guy who is delivering this car from one end of the country to the other. And whilst he's on his road trip, he ends up picking up this hitchhiker played by Rutger Hauer. And all I will say is all hell breaks loose after that. It's just a fantastic movie. It's up for debate what kind of genre this film is. Some people think it's a horror, some think it's a thriller. I like to think of this film as an action movie, and I actually think it's really underrated as an action movie. Some of the stunts in this are incredible. All of the effects are like in camera. There's no CGI or anything like that. It's shot really well. The cinematography is stunning, and yeah, it's just a fantastic movie if you like action movies, road movies, horror films, all that kind of stuff. And it's a lovely release from Second Sight. You know, the movie looks pretty good on 4K. You get some special features in here, some new ones. You know, there's interviews with the director, Robert Harmon, the cinematographer, C. Thomas Howell. I think there's an interview with the composer. There's some great interviews on here. You get two thick booklets in it. One is the original screenplay of the movie. I've not had a chance to read that yet, but I'm hoping it's going to be like the original screenplay was, which was somewhat different to the finished film. And then you also get a hardback book, which I haven't had a chance to delve into yet, but I can't wait to do that. So yeah, we finally have The Hitcher on 4K. So there you go, guys. Those are all of my 4K and Blu-ray pickups for the month of September 2024. Let me know in the comments if you've seen any of these movies. Have you picked up any of these particular releases? I would love to hear your thoughts. And I will just say once again, thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. And I'll see you all again on the next one. So take care, guys.